And we are participating in the Cohasset Advisory Committee meeting of Wednesday, February 26, 2025 via Zoom call as allowed by law. Could I have a roll call, please? Mike Barclay,
Mike Barclay present.
Mark Cameron,
Mark Cameron here.
Fran Collins,
Present.
Diane Kennedy,
Diane Kennedy here.
Mark Maggi,
Andrew here.
Vince Thornton,
Vince Thornton here.
Meg Wheeler,
Wheeler present.
and I guess Mary's still not here, so, but she'll be here shortly, I'm sure. So I wanted to discuss the reorganization. Typically, sorry, typically at this point in time or after the last town meeting, we would reorganize, somebody would nominate a new chair or the same chair, whichever you prefer. And we would vote on that and the other positions, the vice chair and the secretary. So if somebody would like to make a nomination for chair, I would accept that.
And
Nobody wants to nominate anybody?
can we nominate Jean Estino? Would you be so inclined to continue on?
Sure, that's not a problem.
I'll second that.
I know you all like 8 o'clock ending meetings.
Yes, you're the best.
Thank you. Okay, so let me just jot that down. I think Leontina's here, but I'm not sure. Okay, so the motion has been made and seconded. Thank you. I would like Mary to continue as the vice chair until town meeting. If that's okay, if nobody minds one way or the other, unless somebody wants to continue, wants to participate as the vice chair, you can definitely raise your hand. And this is normally somebody would nominate someone, but I'm happy to have people volunteer because I know how hard it is for a commitment to these things. But somebody could nominate Mary to continue until the end of her term.
I would nominate Mary to continue through the remainder of her term.
I'll second that.
Mark and Mike.
Does she have to be here to accept?
No, you know the rule. You know the rule. If you don't show up, anything can
I
happen.
also nominate her for street sweeper, dog catcher, pothole filler.
Oh, she's going to be surprised when she comes on.
Many hats.
Okay, so we have a chair and a vice chair. And as I said, her term.
I heard all that. I heard all that.
What?
Dog catcher? Did you get the dog catcher part?
No, I'm sorry. For some reason, I got sent to Microsoft Teams first instead of Zoom.
Yeah, the login was a little odd today.
Anyway, I heard the conversation while I was waiting to be admitted.
Okay, so did you hear that I was nominated to be chair?
That is beautiful. No, I did not hear that.
Okay, I was nominated by Mark Cameron and it was seconded by Mark Maggi, sorry. And then we took a vote for you to continue as vice chair until the end of your term. And you were nominated and seconded, so I'm hoping that you're okay with that. But you know the rule about not being present.
I do.
And so we also have secretary position, which really is just kind of ceremonial, for lack of another term. The major responsibility for that is making sure that the minutes, once they're approved, get submitted to the town clerk's office and posted on the website. So do I have a nomination for secretary?
Isn't the new guy usually the secretary?
Typically.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
All right.
I nominate Vince Thornton.
Second.
Okay, and who was that? Was that Mike?
Mike and then Mark Cameron.
And then Mark. We're nominating and seconding everyone we can.
We're gonna get this thing done by
So that-
7:45.
So that you're nominated and seconded? Okay, I've got your number. Mary, you have your hand up.
I do have a question because if I recall, we did not vote on the vice chair. Is that correct?
We didn't vote on the chair either. Yeah, we have to vote
Okay.
on all of them.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
So my
So we
own
can-
comment on the vice chair is that it might be good because I will be off the board for somebody else to be involved that could get a little bit of legs under them and prior to. That's my only commentary. I'm happy to assume that, but just realistically, there is a little bit of lay of the land. And
Yeah.
it might be helpful.
okay. So why don't we put that on the agenda for the next meeting to talk about who might be willing to shadow you, for lack of a
Okay.
better term, okay?
Yeah, no, but I actually, that's probably a good way to look at it.
Okay, great. All right, so we're going to now vote for the chair position. And we need a roll call. Mike Barclay,
Mike Barclay, aye.
Mark Cameron,
Mark Cameron, aye.
Fran Collins,
Aye.
Diane Kennedy. Did we
Diane
lose
Kennedy,
that?
aye.
Okay, thank you. Mark Maggi.
Yeah,
I'm in Cohasset.
Oh, okay, so she'll be out of the loop for about 10 minutes. I said Mark Maggi, sorry.
Aye.
Mary McGoldrick,
Aye.
Vince Thornton,
Vince Thornton, aye.
and Meg Wheeler,
Meg Wheeler, aye.
and Gina Stino, aye. Okay, so now we're going to do the roll call for vice chair. Mike Barclay,
Mike Barclay, aye.
Mark Cameron,
Mark Cameron, aye.
Fran Collins. Diane Kennedy,
Diane Kennedy, aye, if you can hear me.
I can. Mark Maggi,
Mark Maggi, aye.
Mary McGoldrick,
Sure. Aye. Aye,
Vince,
yes.
Vince Thornton,
Vince Thornton, aye.
Meg Wheeler,
Meg Wheeler, aye.
and Gina Stino, aye. Okay, and then we also took kind of a vote for secretary. Thank you for putting your hand up, Vince.
Sure.
Terry. So now we'll do a roll call. It was, the motion was made by Mike Barclay and seconded by Mark Cameron. Mike Barclay,
Mike Barclay, aye.
Mark Cameron,
Mark Cameron, aye.
Fran Collins,
Aye.
Diane Kennedy,
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Mark Maggi,
Mark Maggi, aye.
Mary McGoldrick,
Mary McGoldrick, aye.
Vince Thornton,
Vince Thornton, aye.
Meg Wheeler,
Meg Wheeler, aye.
and Gina Stino, aye. And I don't know if I voted for myself for chair, so just for the minutes,
Yeah, you did not.
for Leontina, Gina Stino was an aye also on the chair. Thank you very much. We also have a slate of liaisons. And I have been killing myself because I remembered making notes and I couldn't find them. Well, I think what happened was, once Rob rolled off, we just kept the slate as it was, with the exception of, no, we did do a new school committee and school building committee. So I will circulate this list and we can chat about these assignments at the next meeting. But we had, and if you want something, if you don't want to do one, just mention it, but I will just read them so that you can think about it. And I will circulate the list. And it was in the January 19th, it was January 31st, 2024 minutes, in case you want to look. But alternative energy was Fran Collins. Capital budget was Mike Barclay. Community preservation was Meg Wheeler and Diane Kennedy. DPW and facilities were Fran Collins and Mark Cameron. The harbor was Fran Collins. Library and elder affairs was Diane Kennedy. Planning and zoning was Mary McGoldrick. Police and fire, Mike Barclay and Mark Cameron. OPEB, Mark Maggi. School committee, Mary McGoldrick and Mark Cameron. School building committee, Mary McGoldrick and Mark Cameron. We did not have a liaison for select board, so again, at the next meeting, we can revisit all of these. Water and Sewer, Diane Kennedy and Fran Collins, with a question, or Fran Collins / Mark Maggi. Town Hall Building Committee was on hold because we don't know what's going to happen with that. And then Public Safety Committee, Mark Cameron and Mike Barclay. So again, you don't need to take notes. You can get that list off of the January 31st, 2024, and then just cross Rob's name off of the 3 assignments that he had, because we just kind of kept it the way it was. So I think that that's all for that. And then I moved approval of minutes to the top of the list because we seem to always put them off when it's at the end, because we've had arduous, grueling meetings prior to a town meeting or a special town meeting. And then we're 3 meetings behind, and it's just, it takes 2 minutes to approve these. So, and I didn't pull those minutes. Shoot. Mary, do you have the minutes from the last meeting?
Hold on one second.
Because I know I canceled one because I didn't have a quorum. Sorry.
Let me
I'm
just,
disorganized.
no, let me just look up Leontina's emails here.
Yep.
Because she did send them to the committee.
She did. So everybody
So
should
it's-
have them.
It's the advisory committee meeting minutes for January 29. Did everybody receive those?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, does anybody have any comments? Corrections?
Nope.
No? Okay, good. So could I have a motion to approve the minutes of the advisory committee for January 29th, 2025? Thank you, Fran. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please. Mike Barclay?
I've got to abstain, was not there.
You weren't there, okay. Mark Cameron?
Mark Cameron, I.
Fran Collins?
Aye.
Diane Kennedy? I'm not sure she was there.
She
No, she
wasn't,
dropped.
she wasn't there either.
I didn't think so. She had a work commitment. Mark Maggi?
Abstain, I wasn't there.
Okay. Mary McGoldrick?
Aye.
Vince Thornton?
It's Thornton, aye.
Meg, were you at that meeting?
I wasn't, so I'll abstain as well.
Okay, and Gina Stino, aye. Thank you. And then I just want to note that we have a request from the select board. The chair of the select board contacted me and would like to have a joint meeting on Tuesday, March 11th. I know that that's difficult for some, but it's about it's for the school department budget. And you'll note at the bottom of the agenda, it lists the next several meetings for March. We could do our March 12th meeting on the 11th, so we would not meet 2 nights in a row. And quite frankly, there are only 17 warrant articles, so we may not need as many meetings as we normally have. Planning board is done with the exception of one article. So we could do a full meeting, or we could just do the joint meeting on the 11th. Does anybody have a problem with the 11th?
I am unavailable.
Okay, anybody else?
As of right now, I'm available and I can make it.
I'm sorry?
I said, as of right now, I'm available and can make it.
Okay, so if you could just pencil it in on your calendars, please, I would appreciate it. And then strike the 12th and make it the 11th. And if there's anything that we need to discuss before that following meeting on the 19th, we can just have a short meeting after. Just for our committee to take care of any business that needs to be taken care of. Okay? I don't want to have to ask you to do 2 nights in a row, particularly when we're meeting weekly for a month or so.
Jean? Do you know
Yes,
what time will be wanted at the select board meeting?
7 o'clock.
Just plan on 7? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Ellen said she'd put it at the top of the agenda. And hopefully there won't be any need for them to have an executive session because that always messes it up. So we'll just say 7 PM. Okay, now we're going to do, and that again is to discuss the school department budget, which is very important given the state of the situation here. So next discussion is warrant articles for the May 2025 annual town meeting. And Chris is here. So do you want to help us with that, with this section, Chris? I see that Chief Quigley is here and Dan's here for the IT budget.
Yeah, we have the budget. We have the budget folks ready. So the warrant is fairly as routine as any warrant gets. I mean, there's obviously capital in the budget and CPC. But in terms of external article, like less common articles, there's one zoning, and that has to do with the floodplain. The state sent us some additional updates that they should have sent us last year when we did the update at the special town meeting. So that has to be done. It's some citations to maps and a tweak in how the appeals process works, but it's all just following the state requirements. So that's really comparatively pro forma. Like Cassandra presented it last night. If they are a planning director of the select board, they referred it to the planning board for the required public hearing. So that'll be back to you after that. Again, it's pretty pro forma. It appears that while the town has adopted state section of the state law, which allow us to lien water bills, and we do treat water and sewer, we kind of build them together, where people have both services. We may need to, just to be careful, adopt a section specifically for sewer bills as well. We've been doing this for years anyway, with no issues, but council has said, well, maybe we can't really find evidence that you adopt these for sewer. Maybe you should do that too. So that's a warrant article in progress. And there's an extension. We've done this before. We're part of something called the Old Colony Planning Council, which is more of the southern part of the state, but it's a fund that helps people upgrade their septic systems if they're not on sewer, or help to connect. It's a revolving loan fund, and the residents just get a lower interest rates, but we borrow it, and then we borrow it on the residents' behalf after they apply and are approved. And then so there's going to be an ask for increasing the amount of the authorization. That doesn't cost the taxpayers anything. It just allows us to open up the fund for additional people. So there's a request from our health board to health department to go up $50,000 for that. So and there's one citizen's petition to expand the North Cohasset Sewer District to add some sites on that are on Lambert's Lane. That is going in front of the Sewer Commission for a public hearing, and then it'll go forward to the other boards. That the Sewer Commission votes in favor of it, it requires a majority vote at town meeting. If the Sewer Commission votes against it, it would require a 2/3 vote at town meeting. So those are the kind of different articles that are out there. But otherwise, CPC is in the middle of a lot of conversations, and capital's actually come a long way too. So I expect the month of March to be very busy, but I think a lot of things are being wrapped up nicely.
I do have a question on the warrant, Chris.
Sure.
Did notice that in the warrant for the annual town meeting, it says May 12th for the transaction of business and May 17th for the election of officers. What does that mean?
So the town meeting, the election is technically part of the town meeting. I mean, it's not literally the same night, but the town meeting by law has.
Oh, so May 17th is the election.
Is the
Okay.
election, correct? That's all.
All right. The way it was worded was like, what?
I know that's the official legal wording of it.
Okay, I've never noticed that before, so I did read it, see?
Yeah, the warrant won't say that on the cover, but it'll say that inside. So
Okay. As I said, I've never noticed it before. So May 12th.
It's a Monday, right? And
is
then
the
and the election is
annual
the
town
following.
meeting. And then the election is the following weekend, but I was just gonna ask you something else about. Oh, when's the deadline for the warrant to be published?
Beginning of April. So the
Second week or?
well, really the end of the first week. So
Okay, so we could squeeze a meeting in there the first
if you
the
had
first
to
Wednesday if we had to. Okay, we're pretty efficient when it comes to going through warrant articles, so we probably won't But that's not listed on the upcoming meetings that are in this agenda, so just keep in mind that we might need one more. And it would be the first week in April, and I had a calendar here, but it's fallen off the wall. So, okay, so do you want to go to the next subject, Chris?
It would be the 2nd of April,
Oh,
Yes.
okay, good.
first Wednesday, so the
Jean,
budget,
I have,
sorry.
There's a question.
sorry to interrupt. I had a quick question. Was there a budget calendar that was distributed in our meeting in January that I missed? Generally, there's a calendar that we get about when.
Yeah, that I thought it was distributed to everybody. I will ask Tracy to do it tomorrow, if you, just make sure we have it all. There was a big timeline of everything.
Yeah, and I may have missed it. I don't have it in my, in any
we
files.
didn't get it,
Okay.
although she did ask me when I was planning tonight's meeting if I had received a couple of documents from her, and I hadn't. So maybe it didn't go out, but maybe it was something that I didn't get, so maybe none of us got it.
Okay,
So
thank you.
could you ask her to send it to us, please?
I will.
Thank you.
So, we've been doing the budget planning for a while, and as I think everybody knows, the schools have been having a bit of a challenge. So it's made things a little more complicated. And as things have gotten a little tighter, we just have to take creative looks at what we do. So, in a big broad overview, things are coming together. At the same time, we have to take a hard look, and the recommendation I made to the select board, and they've given me a green light to move forward at this point, is to turn the RTF into an enterprise fund, kind of like water and sewer. So
To turn the one?
the RTF,
Oh, okay.
the RTF, it's called the recycling transfer facility, but
Right.
everybody knows it as the dump. So
No, I just didn't hear what you said. Sorry.
it's that is to turn that into an enterprise fund like water and sewer, so it operate with revenue that it generates and pay its bills through revenue it generates, taking it off the budget. It's not used by everybody, and with the this is a conversation we've been talking about for a while, but the fire and the damage and the rebuilding we need to do has kind of accelerated that conversation. So we'll be presenting formally to the select board, and I've already had a first round conversation about it, and there'll be another one shortly, and then all of you will get that same presentation. And I think Mike has a question.
I'll have my first look this weekend. Joe had surgery and he can't lift anything, so.
Yeah, Chris, just with the creation of an enterprise fund, probably of the magnitude of the RTF budget, I mean, is there a need for a board? I guess kind of what's the oversight process that goes along with having them kind of run as their own standalone entity?
So because it's a town department already, we'll probably just maintain it that way. And if they don't have to be commissioners. I mean, it can be run just by the town. So if there's any board that would have, authority, I guess it would be the select board. But it would, the plan is really to just have it run as it is now through our public works department, with a public works commissioner. So, I mean, it's a self-contained operation, right? And it does sell products in the sense of, you have to sell a service, and then there's products that get put into the marketplace, but it's something that can be boxed, and most municipalities, Situate, for example, runs it that way. Most municipalities actually do it that way. And Hanover just is going through that process now. It's about $700,000. That's the rough annual cost to make the thing go. It will require a separate fee for folks and a change in some of the operations. At the same time, it seems like it's the right approach, and then we'll see where. Hopefully, it'll work. I mean, that's the goal, right? And again, I'll do a more formal presentation to all of you in a couple of weeks. So.
Okay, all right, yeah, I'll save more questions for then.
Okay, Diane and then Fran.
Yeah, just to confirm, this is something that you're thinking of proposing at May annual town meeting?
Correct, because the town meeting would have to approve.
Okay, and I'll defer most of my questions, the many that just came to my mind, but in the past, I remember it being basically a loss, so being able to sustain itself as an enterprise fund is something I would really want to dig into the numbers on, so. Um,
For sure.
anyway, especially with the personnel and hiring people and all the equipment that's needed. So anyway,
It is being run it is being subsidized by the taxpayers right now. And
Right.
that's the truth. So it's if to take it off the budget, it's gonna require people to pay more to use it. So, that is gonna be a real conversation.
yeah, thanks.
Fran,
Yeah, Chris, can you tell us how the plans are for the redevelopment of the facility up there to make it more efficient and get up to 20th century standards, maybe even 21st, who knows?
Yeah, we're gonna skip a whole century. So, yeah, there's been a lot of conversations going on about that, and we hope to have I've been working internally. I had a really great meeting with the gentleman who's actually our consultant, who's also overseeing the day-to-day operations these days, and Michelle Leary, who's been handling the insurance side of this, and we're a good way along. And for example, the Boy Scouts have reopened. I know I was talking to Vince about that last night. So we're getting some of that stuff back online, and we're trying to streamline operations up there and make it more self-service, so we don't have to have staff touch things 2, 3, or 4 times. So we want it to be safe and efficient and clean. So you could, resident can go and drop their cardboard right safely in a chute, and their plastic safely in a chute, and put their garbage down into the big hole if they want, into the big bin, and just deposit their electronics in the right way. So we're trying to simplify some of these things, and there are ways of doing it. We just need better equipment, better layout. So I think again that this will all be presented a little more robustly in the next couple of weeks, but there's an ongoing design plan too, to make it more streamlined, and again to upgrade our equipment. We're not talking about crazy amounts of money, by the way. This is fortunately it's not 7 digits. Fortunately, we're talking about 6 digits, but we're getting some insurance money, and then we're going to have to put a little more investment in there. So, but the goal is to have it clean and nice. It won't be quite as nice as Citrus, I'm afraid. We don't have quite that much room, because I know anyone who used that when we were shut down, I think came back like, wow. So, but it will be the goal is to make it nicer, cleaner.
We don't have as much room as Situate, but Situate certainly has a streamlined operation, and it is clean. And I think that we have enough land up there properly engineered that we could have something that would suit our needs as a smaller population town, and make it more efficient and more cost effective as well.
That's the plan. If we don't have to have, and it's also, it's also how we manage the flow of things in and out.
Exactly.
Just that to be more efficient. So we've already taken some big steps in that direction, which is great. So I'm optimistic this will come together nicely. But that's a big picture thing. So let me get a little tiny bit more into the weeds. I was kind of, maybe I'll just jump onto the shared budgets and stuff for you. So hold on a second. Let me share my screen. I'll just share the 5-year forecast. Okay. Here, all right. So, everyone can see?
Yeah.
All right, so I'll zoom in a little bit here. So, there's a couple of highlights I just want to point out as we start. So, sorry, my computer's going to be moving a little bit slowly here. So, it's bigger. Okay, so, our tax levy, there were two new special stabilization funds. You'll see those on line 9 there. That's the schools and the roads. So the select board has authorized them to go up by their legally allowed 2.5% for next year. So they'll be up to $2,357,500. That's most of that's on the school side. It's 1.5. The roads is 8. Our new growth number last year, you can see that was in line 7. Was 753,000. It was down from the prior year, but that's still a good, robust number. We think we'll have one more number this year. Budgeted 590. I think it'll be higher, but I don't know for sure. Because the one Pleasant hadn't fully come online, the Harbor condos had not fully come online by June 30th of last year. And that said, it's going to slow down after that because there's no large projects. And for Cohasset, I'm talking about, a 15 or 20 unit project. That's large for Cohasset. There's really nothing of any magnitude. Hingham Lumber is looking at doing an expansion. There's, a couple of things like that, which are great, but they're not big. And then people still, you still see that in the tear down rebuilds. I mean, you can see that right on Main Street, right down the street from Town Hall is a large home that was torn down to put a larger home. If people have money to do it, they're doing it. So that continues, but it's going to start to slow down. And then we have the first numbers from the governor. Our state aid projections are up a little bit from last year. Moved the local receipts up a little bit, though you see the little stars there, the little asterisks. We're going to lose, to create an enterprise fund, we're going to lose some of that revenue. So some of the revenue that came in, we're going to lose expense too, more expense than revenue. So I had to take that out. So I made a note for myself in there. And then we're going to I'm going to recommend we use a little bit of free cash just to plug some holes. One is on OPEB. We've been putting a little extra money into the reserve fund. And then there's been a continued, goal of the select board is to put more money into the capital stabilization fund. So this year it'll go up. We put it 100 in last year, which was higher than we had committed to. But so this year, putting another 50 or 150 in, 50 more than last year will get us up to that 2.5% increase that the board is committed to. And then the transfers are going up. So you can see the capital number, which is right here in line 46 there. That's going up, so we'll be up 150. Last year was actually more than 1996, because we put 100,000 in free cash. But this will show putting in 2146, which is the biggest number we've ever committed to capital in a general budget. And then you can see the money going to the road stabilization, the school stabilization. And again, I had a meeting with the OPEB, the PEB committee earlier today. So, and I've already socialized with the select board. So the original number here for the OPEB for the spring was $246,000, 247, sorry. And I was going to bring it down to 50%, but I was able to put a little bit more money in today after some other tweaks with our debt numbers. So I'm going to recommend we put 148.5 in the spring, and then we do the remainder, which will be 350 plus the remaining amount in the fall. So we continue to meet the goals of the OPEB plan. You're going to be hearing more about the IT budget in a minute, but you'll notice here in line 70, the school support operation is up, and that's because we have a new school resource officer now. We now have we have Greg Rance at the elementary campus and Greg Taylor at the high school, middle school campus. So we have two now. That was added earlier this year. It's working out great. Greg Lawrence and now has a great following among third and fourth graders. So he's a really tall kid too. So, but really, he's been a great resource up at those two schools, and so that's gone well. But it also means that a little more money went into this. And then I will show you the numbers that are, concerning. And the pension number this year is actually only up 4%, so it's really not bad. The concern is that the county is looking at a rapid increase. That if we have to go up 10% in the next couple of years, that'll be brutal. So we're hoping that will not happen. And there's ongoing conversations, and I was working with the PEP committee on that. They've actually met with a lot of pension folks at the state level and now at the county level, and we're really trying to go up with a plan to help us and all the participating members of Norfolk County stave off what amounts to a crazy increase and spread it out a little bit more. They're trying to get their plan fully funded by 2032, and it doesn't have to be funded until 2040. The state's encouraging 2035. So we're just looking for 2035. To spike all the way up and come down is just not sustainable. But what really hit us this year was this. This is the healthcare. Originally, this was even higher because we had the healthcare, which historically has been very good. We've been able to keep the numbers low. We had a 0% a couple times. This year is a projection increase of 10%. It was originally, the range is 9.9 to 19. We were originally projecting 15, but our number came in at it's 9.92, so it's budgeted at 10. And the number's not exactly 10% increase because there's also increases in the number of people who are using the plan as there's been plan changes. So this was built from the bottom up. So that accounts for, everyone who's currently registered with a little extra. There's always a few extra plans covered just in case, because people can switch plans from an individual or family, or we might have new staff that weren't on insurance, that join insurance, so you have to have a little cushion in there. So, but it's a big increase, and that was really hamstringing us, and it still is a bit, because it's the largest increase we've had in a very long time. That said, at least it was at the low end of the scale. So when you scroll all the way down, you end up with basically a little more than a 3% increase in the overall revenue available, with the schools getting the bigger chunk and the 10 getting the smaller chunk. And that's what we're working with. So the numbers you'll see tonight all fit into this number, 15,715, 285. And if you actually did the math, if I sent you the actual Excel spreadsheet, which I'll do, what I've done is the 250 revenue that we're losing, I made the schools whole. So I've shifted the impact of that more to the town side. So if you actually ran the numbers, the town's increase is only a little bit more than 2%. The schools is closer to 4%. It's fair. We can make it work. I see Fran has a question. I'm going to take this down so I can see you all.
Yeah, Chris, the workman's compensation generally for an employer is a function of claims. The more claims you have, the higher your workman's comp is. How does it work for the town?
So we actually pay, it's really, our pay is based on our payroll, actually. So we actually have had a really good claims history. We've worked really hard. We had a rough run a few years back, but we've come back into line. So we also aggressively seek rebates and discounts. So we've been able to save money every year by meeting certain benchmarks, during certain kinds of trainings. For example, the police go to when the truck's available, they do these driver trainings. Same thing with Public Works; they can do it too, and we get a discount for doing those kinds of things. And for having toolhouse training, they call it toolbox trainings at Public Works. You cover safety stuff, and for having things like heat cameras. So the facilities go around the buildings in cold weather and see if there's a cold spot because something might be air is leaking in that could freeze a pipe. There's also monitors, moisture monitors in a lot of places now in the schools. If you remember a number of years ago, there was a cold snap, a pipe broke and the office is flooded. So we've secured the building so there's monitors and sensors so we would catch those things before bad stuff happens. And
But workman's compensation, does the town get any special consideration that a private contractor wouldn't get?
Yeah, we're in a better. We have a better plan coverage. So we're we're part of a much bigger pool. It's this Maya, this pool of other communities, and our claims history has been pretty good. So that said, people make more money and injury. When you have people who can do police and fire have separate coverage. We have a separate set of coverage for police and fire, which is worked into that, by the way. It can drive your costs up. And Public Works is, unfortunately, knock on wood, we have a good track record and people are safe. But when you're driving heavy equipment, there's always more risk. But we have our coverage has been good and our rates have been good.
This just prompted some questions of my own. I wonder what sort of a safety program we have for that. We have a lot of town employees now that we never had before. People doing different things. In terms of manual labor and in areas where they could potentially get hurt. Do we have a safety program in place that would?
We do. We do. And there's two levels of it. One is more kind of broad for like office safety, don't run with scissors, things like that, that runs through our HR department. But we also have an OSHA trained, we have a trained OSHA instructor at our Public Works yard who works with staff down there and our facilities folks too. And so there's regular safety trainings. We have the safety gear that the guys have is it's all kinds of PPE they have for various tasks. For example, if you saw the guys spraying lights, remember when they were in the there's all kinds of safety gear they have to wear before they go up there. There's training they have to take before they get on a lift. So all of our guys do all of those things. And again, you can if you'd who is the liaison for Public Works, by the way? I'm not sure.
Hey.
All right, so come on down, Fran, and meet with Nick and Brian and Dan, who's our OSHA guy, and our staff member who's trained in OSHA. And I'd love you to see more of what goes on. So they really do a great job in staying safe. So.
I haven't asked the question. I stop in there regularly. I know Dan Sullivan does a pretty good job. I just want to be sure that one of the most important things with safety is that it's got to be repetitive, and you got to have regular safety meetings, and you just can't have lip service. And I saw that in my seagoing career, that when you had active safety meetings, the accident rates went down. If you just had lip service, it didn't make any difference. So anyway, okay, I'll go talk to them. Thank you, Chris.
We also know with cybersecurity, by the way, which you can ask Ron about. If he's gonna tell you about whether you ask anyway. So that's a safety element that we actually train in regularly, and we have a lot provided. But we do a lot of that. So thanks for asking the question.
All right, thank you.
Diane,
Just on that, and then I have a couple other quick questions. Maya, our insurance carrier, actually provides a lot of training and a lot of programs. Chris, at some point, it might be great to have a Maya rep when we're a little off cycle, come and talk to some of the relevant committees, advisory, select board, and talk about, what they're asking and what they're offering in terms of programs, because they don't want claims.
We actually had them in. So we actually did we have a safety committee that spanned all departments, and we did have a meeting a couple of months ago. We had Maya in, and we went through trainings too, by the way. We booked some trainings with them right then. So we use Maya trainings all the time. Some of them are live, and some of them are are Zoom like this or digital.
Right.
So we use their tools all the time. Plus we do other kinds of trainings too. So
Yep.
You're right. Both Diane and Fran, it's repetitive trainings like golf, right? You have to practice all the time to be good at it. You have to practice all the time to be safe. So it's second nature, right? So you wear that harness, you clip that hook, you check the engine, you make sure the equipment is locked down before you turn on, all kinds of stuff like that. There's a certain checklist that the guys have to go through when they take a truck out, or they bring it back, or they use different equipment. So there's a lot of that stuff going on, much more than there ever used to be. So
And then I just have two. One is a short-term question, which is, do you anticipate any loss of federal grant funding that might require some pullback from other monies?
So most of the federal grant money we get is filtered to the state. So if there's cuts, it'll hit the state and then hit us. So there's usually how things pass through. That said, if you saw the select board meeting a couple of weeks ago, our Safe Harbor group, which has a federal grant that comes through the CDC, was cut off for a while.
Mhm.
Everyone else was, but the money's been released again. So we're hoping that will stay released. And the schools don't get a lot of federal money, really. I mean, they get a little bit, but not a lot. So I was talking to the superintendent the other day, and so she's not so concerned, because we're not eligible for a lot of the grants that would typically affect us. So that said, federal money does fund a lot of transportation stuff indirectly, because a lot of money comes down to the states and then they pull it out. So.
And then just one other question, which is on the union contracts. Are they being negotiated currently for FY26? Is that the first year of the next round, or how does that, where are we in that?
The schools are fully in, and we're in on 3 of our 5. And the library appears in the process of decertifying their union, which is all entirely up to them, but it's exciting if it continues to go through that way. So we have fire fully engaged, we have police engaged, and they have 2 units. And then we're waiting. We've had some preliminary conversations. We haven't sat down with our public works and facilities yet. So.
But would the start of the next union contracts be for FY26, or are we talking FY27, FY26?
Right, so
it's possible there's some squishiness.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of money in the budget, but I'm recommending articles be set aside for raises, just because I don't know what all the numbers are going to be. So there's a little bit of money in the budget, just to to cover what it would be a normal COLA and stuff like that, even though we don't have negotiations done. That said, if there's any additional funds, and there probably will need to be, both on the school and town side, I'm recommending that the $350,000 be set aside out of free cash just to address those as needed. So, which we hopefully won't need all of, but it's there. So,
thank you.
All right, so that's an overview. So, we're going to do departments. So tonight you have Chief Quigley. And I think right, is he up first? Yes. If you're ready to go, I'm happy to introduce Chief Bill Quigley of the Class Police Department.
One
gonna-
quick question,
I'm
Chris.
sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
On the budget overview sheet that you shared your screen with.
I will
me,
send that to you. I will send that to you.
Just put big draft letters on top of it as you usually do, and that would be much appreciated. Thank
I
you.
was tweaking it as recently as a few hours ago, so that's now the numbers that we're pretty much locked into. With again, I still don't have my final workers' comp and property casualty numbers, but I'm comfortable.
No, we understand that it's not finished. It's just helpful for us to kind of have a point of reference.
And you should have gotten materials on police and IT already, right? I think you all
Yes.
got. And then we have additional materials coming in. So once you tell me who the next set of budgets are, you'll get all those materials and everything else. So.
Great.
Chief,
Hey there. Can
Hello.
everybody hear and see me?
How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks, Gene. And I spelled your name wrong in my email. I was embarrassed. We've known each other too long.
I'm used to it.
Okay. I'm gonna share my screen. I'm gonna attempt to. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
All right, cool. So I guess the first thing, and this is the broad overview. If you really want to get in the weeds, we can. This is our current staffing. We have 21 sworn people. That includes me. One full-time equivalent civilian who's split with the fire department. That's our admin person. We have a total of 37 employees. Everybody beyond the 22 FTEs are per diem employees who work non-regular hours. So you heard when Chris was talking earlier, we transferred an officer out of patrol into school resource, Officer Greg Moran. So now we have 2 officers covering the district, one doing the Pond Street campus, one doing the Sawyer Street campus. And I have some numbers that go with those campuses, which are really, I didn't realize the extent of the school population on each campus, especially Sawyer Street. Quite a few people work there, and there's a lot of kids there too, more than 1,000. But at any rate, the brass tacks of this is we have 21 sworn. There's 15 of those 21 are actually on patrol. That means the people answering 911 calls in their supervisors. There's usually 3 officers assigned to each shift, and we have 3 shifts a day shift, evening shift, and midnight shift. And then there's a relief shift because the officers work a 4 and 2 schedule. They work 37.5 hours per week. So there has to be an overlap. With 15 officers on patrol, so there's 15 officers in the patrol division, and to get to 21, there's 6 others, including me. And of those 6, that's made up, those 6 make up the admin section, school resources, the 2 officers attached to school resources, and the detectives. So really, there's again 15 line officers. This is just a quick look, and these numbers come from the SHREC, our regional dispatch center. Calls were up 5.36% in calendar 2024, and overall in the last 5 years, calls have been up almost 130% in 5 years. It's really it is, our small town has become a busy place. It's not bank robberies, it's not gang violence. Most of it's mental health calls, quite frankly. A lot of criminal complaints, a lot of motor vehicle stops and parking tickets, and a ton of medical calls. As you may remember, the fire department has the fire department does their calls, but we also respond to all fire calls. And the reason for that is we're out on the road. The officers are mostly on the road on patrol, and they could be close to someone's house. If they're patrolling Beechwood and there's a call in Beechwood, they can be there, 6 minutes before a fire engine or the ambulance. So we not only respond to our calls, we respond to their calls as well. And we've had the addition of some medical facilities in town on 3A. There's quite an operation on 3A now that's a drug treatment center, alcohol and drug treatment center, that has caused a lot of calls, steep increase in calls to that location. We also have a day drug treatment center on 3A near Crocker Lane. And again, same types of calls there. And a lot of these are based in mental health issues. We talked about Officer Greg Lawrence, and he's on the Deer Hill campus. Again, Greg Taylor's at the high school, but there's almost 1,400 students in the school district, and there's 279 staff members. The Deer Hill campus has 718 students there daily and 133 staff members. That's a ton of people. We had no coverage there whatsoever. So we had Greg Taylor, who covers the Pond Street campus, trying to cover both locations. And just the Pond Street campus has 681 students and 146 staff members. That's a lot of people. And we just would with what's going on in the world, we really we talked in previous years, probably for the past 5 or 6 years. And Jean will remember this, about having someone at the Sawyer Street campus, and we finally did it. We had a little bit of a we're at full staff, and we took the opportunity to transfer someone over to cover those kids on Sawyer Street. So high level look at the budget. I requested $3.693435 so $3,693,435 was my original request. 79.23% of that was for personnel, and 14.25% of that was SHREC, was our membership in the Regional Dispatch Center in Hingham. And the SHREC had proposed a steep increase. It was almost $515,000. And, Chris and I attend meetings every month, at least once a month, in Hingham, SHREC. And when their budget was coming together, Chris really shined the spotlight on their budget. And after several contentious meetings where, Cohasset was really advocated for, we're able to get that, or Chris was able to get that number down to something more reasonable, $390,000 or $490,000. So that's how we come up with Chris's number at $3,685,925. SHREC relented, as well as the other towns took up some of the slack, Norwell, Hull, and Hingham, to get our assessment down. One of the causes for the increase in the equipment, in the realm of equipment, this year for fiscal year 2026 was we have a new parking vendor that manages our parking tickets and parking ticket machines. And there's a yearly cost associated with that. It's $24,000. That number used to live, it lived in different places. At one time in the selectmen's budget, another time, most recently, it was in IT. We're proposing, in consultation with the town manager and IT, we're proposing to move that $24,000 into the police department's budget. It's a monthly bill that comes in. It's about $2,000 a month, and it's better. It's better and more accurately managed by the police department, by my admin. She has her finger on the pulse of this, and it really takes some close scrutiny with their billing practices are not exactly Swiss. So it requires active management, and it's really more appropriate for it to live in the police budget. And the other adjustments to the budget would be, again, the SRO added to the Sawyer Street campus, and this is a level service budget. These are the line items what was requested, and ultimately these numbers here were approved. Now ready for any questions that folks have.
Mark, Maggie, and then Fran.
Was that number was $2,000 a month for the vendor that manages our parking tickets?
Correct. They process payments and run the website.
How much are we
I'm
bringing
sorry?
in? How much are we possibly bringing in monthly in parking ticket payments? Is this are we losing money on this vendor?
No, actually, we're finally, and we never look at it as a money making proposition.
Sure.
but it's actually makes money now. We've taken under the old vendor who failed, who had taken in maybe $30,000 a year. Right now, as it stands, we've taken in the last fiscal year, it's been on north of $91,000 per year.
For parking tickets?
Yes.
Wow. Where are the worst offenders happening?
That's Sandy
Mostly
Beach.
Sandy Beach.
Oh, right, Sandy
Yeah.
Beach.
Get them at
Yeah,
that
really.
Black Rock Beach too.
Oh, we do. Believe me, I have the numbers to prove it. And we really restructured the whole way we do things. And the old vendor, we're recouping money that was out there that was left on the table by the old vendor. We're able to take a data dump from the old vendor of all the tickets that weren't paid, and we were able to streamline things. And with the help of some really talented officers that I have that are good with databases, we're able to transfer that information to the Registry of Motor Vehicles, and they put holds on the registered owners of the car. Most of these people are from out of town, but they put holds on the registrations and their licenses. They can't renew them unless these fines are paid, and the late fee is paid now. So last month we recovered $8,000 alone just in January, because a lot of people with commercial regs, they expired December 31st. So this is the first year they realized that Cohasset's here for their money.
And with the ticket situation, how many people park on the street during the non-parking on the street time? Because we know
Winter parking? Winter parking?
Yes.
It's sporadic. Most of that happens around the village. It's people that have been at one of the establishments and maybe leave their car out in the street.
I've often wondered if a parking ticket incentivizes people to do irresponsible things when leaving beer after one too many espresso martinis. When I go for a run early in the morning, I see a car out front of beer with a parking ticket. I often think that person probably made the wise decision, and maybe we shouldn't be giving them a ticket because the other option would be worse. But that's just me on my soapbox.
Yeah, it's I can run the report. It's the numbers. If you're into data or in a spreadsheet, the numbers are really interesting. The information that we capture, and what's pretty cool about this new system is it's an electronic. It's the equivalent of an iPhone with a printer attached to it. And the officers take a picture of the violation. It attaches you get the ticket, and there's a picture of the violation right on the ticket. So there's not a lot of room for argument. If you park in a handicap spot and you don't have a placard,
yeah,
and there's a picture of it, it's really cut down on the appeals as well.
Okay, Fran, and then Diane.
Yeah, Chief, I looked at your budget. It looked like it was pretty well put together. I was impressed with all of the numbers. However, I have one question. How do you spend, I used to go hunting years ago and buy ammunition, and it wasn't very much money then, but how on earth do you spend $11,000 on ammunition?
Well, it's post. We have so police up since 2020, the state has instituted the Post Commission, Police Officer Standards and Training Commission, and police officers before 2020 were regular employees. Well, now with this licensure, we're licensed by the state, and there's all kinds of requirements that came with that. They're unfunded state mandates, but part of that is we have to go to the range 3 times a year, and it's 8 hours at the range. One is a qualification, one is a training, and one is a do whatever you want, but there has to be live fire. So it's a lot of training now.
Well, how many bullets for a police pistol does $11,000 buy?
Not as many as they used to.
Okay.
Ammunition, we don't get any kind of break either. So ammunition is really expensive now. It's a couple of years ago, probably just when ammunition started climbing in price, we transitioned from 45 caliber down to 9mm because it was cheaper. And that was one of the main drivers.
It just seemed like an awful lot of money for ammunition, but okay, you still really haven't answered my question. I
wholeheartedly agree. I'm not really a gun guy, but and I'd rather not go to the range 3 times a year, but it's what we have to do.
Yeah, okay.
And we keep a supply. We keep duty ammo in train. We buy a less expensive training ammo as well. We buy stuff that isn't as expensive to train with, but we have to maintain, we do maintain a number of rounds, both rifle, and the rifle stuff is really expensive as well. We maintain, a good level of that just in our armory. Because we're just afraid we can't get it. Situate has had to call us and borrow ammunition because they ran out, for their training. They pay us back, and we reciprocate with each other, but there's problems getting it. There's problems sourcing it right now.
All right, thanks, Chief.
Sure.
Diane, and then Vince, and then Mark.
Very quick question, which is the SROs, are they in your budget, Chief?
They're above the line. They're on the town-wide budget. So they don't, there's a 200 and.
Yeah, I think yeah, we saw that earlier.
205,000 that lives above the line.
Thank you.
Sure.
Vince?
Two questions, Chief, thanks. One, edification, the line item matrons. What does that entail?
So when we have a female prisoner, we like to have a female person watch them. We
Okay.
don't have to, but we have civilians that are trained jailers, for lack of a better term, that come in and work for $25 an hour to watch female prisoners.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. And then seasonal officers, the expenditure has not been that high, but you're making an increase there as well.
Yeah, we had, because of post, we used to have like summer special officers.
Yep.
And with post, those were done away with because they couldn't meet the requirements for licensure. Right now, used to be able to have a part-time police academy, which is like 400 hours of training. A full-time police academy is 800 hours. So now with post, to be licensed, you need that full-time academy. So we lost all those college kids and people we would tap to work just the summer. Interestingly enough, we were able to find two great officers. They were Boston police officers, and one was a Cohasset Schools Medco student, Carlos Peralta. They were Boston police officers for about 1.5 years, 2 years, and both of these Boston police officers transferred to Boston Fire. So they're Boston firefighters now, but due to the fire schedule, they work, they have a lot of time off, and they come down and work with us. So we're able to utilize them for details, and if there's a shift that one of the union members doesn't want, or we want to put them on patrol during the summer, we can utilize them. So it worked out. It's really it's a strange situation. I don't see that happening a lot. It was a unique situation, a unique opportunity, and we seized it. So that money goes towards paying them.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks.
Sorry, stuck on mute. Back to that, the ticketing system there, wasn't that was a shared item with the DPW, right? In monitoring the plates as they were coming in through the RTF. I don't know if that's back up and running after the fire, or if that's a shared expense somehow, and how that.
We
doesn't burden.
We haven't purchased the plate readers yet for the RTF, and that was sort of the plan for the fall and winter to get that up and running. But then we had the fire, so we have the money. I have the money in the capital budget line item for the infrastructure for the plate readers, and we were just going to provide info. We would get the list of people who have stickers. We want to use this at Sandy Beach as well, so it's going to save a lot of man hours. So we'll put plate readers on a cruiser, and there'll also be stationary plate readers at the RTF. And everybody who buys a dump sticker or a town-wide sticker will be whitelisted. If one of those plates hit the license plate reader, the LPR, it'll flag for DPW. We can give DPW a list of vehicles that were flagged, and they can do the research. But we're just providing the infrastructure, the LPR, the license plate reader, that can read the vehicles that are on that white list. But we haven't implemented that, and things might change now because of circumstance. We really haven't figured it out, and they lost some of their IT abilities during that fire. So the money's there, but we haven't fully implemented it at the RTF. And Ron Menard has some infrastructure there as well, as far as the ability to read plates.
Okay, thanks.
One quick question. When are the new stickers due? Is it by the end of March?
End of March, yes.
Okay.
And that's, a lot of this is, I see Chris popped up as well. A lot of this hinges on, how we move forward. If it turns into an enterprise fund, and, who do we allow in there? Can you buy into the RTF if you're from another town and things like that? So there's a lot of moving parts right now and some logistics involved that, we're trying to work through. We're trying to we're trying to just test it. We're running different scenarios by each other, trying to figure out where the problems could be.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for the chief? No? Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thanks so much.
Sorry we made you wait a little bit. I had a lot of things at the beginning that I don't usually put at the beginning of a meeting, but I was afraid that they would get pushed off and go to a whole other meeting if we didn't do them up front. So
I understand completely. It's all worthwhile stuff. I listened. Take care.
you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Mark. Vince.
Okay, so we would have had fire tonight, but Chief Dockeray is in training this weekend in Worcester. Fire chief annual training. So the goal is to have him next week, and probably later in the public works. But we do have our great IT staff. We have Ron Menard, the what's kind of call him commissioner, but he's I guess the director, right? Is that what we call you? And then Dan is number 2 is also with us, and Ron I think has a short PowerPoint too to go through, and I will turn this over to Ron.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. If it's okay with you, I'd like to present 4 or 5 slides about the FY26 budget that we're proposing. We'll highlight some areas that we think you need to be concerned about or at least aware of. And if you have questions afterwards, we can drill down further into individual line items if you like.
Thank you.
Can everyone see this screen here?
Yep. Yes.
Oh, thank you. Let me just put that in presentation mode. Still see it okay?
Yes.
Okay.
That doesn't look like our buildings though.
We're working on it.
Okay.
Let me just move my notes over a little bit here. This is the FY26 budget, essentially. I'd like to just touch base on a couple of things. Maybe a technology budget overview. We are actually discussing 2 budgets tonight, but I do think it's warranted that we touch on the school's 315 budget, which is the technology component of that budget. There's been some interesting transitions in that in the last couple of years, including this year. We'll get deeper into that. Past and future budget concerns, things we've done in the past, and a couple of concerns we have going forward, and then some final takeaways. So the IT budget composition, charter, and goals, essentially, the composition includes salaries, expense lines comprising of management of hardware, software, and personnel. We currently have 4.5 FTEs in the IT department. Currently, and those positions are funded through the central infrastructure budget and the school's tech budget. The charter And primary goals conveyed to us when I arrived in 2015 was to implement technologies in an efficient and cost-effective manner, yielding organizational efficiencies while also offering better constituent services through technology adoption. Our goals have always been to make government operations more streamlined and robust while ensuring our systems remain viable and secure. Digital literacy was for the educational side of the house, was a very large component, and that's been a primary goal and a continued goal for all K-12. FY26 tech budgets 155, 156, and 315 essentially are the tech budgets that we leverage to keep technology moving forward in the town of Cohasset. This year, we were asked, depending on the budget, for a level service, a level funded, and/or a reduction of 15% in some of these budgets. The CPS budget was actually, we actually were requested for all three of those. So it was level funded, level service, and a reduction of 15%. I know the schools are debating and looking at what exactly that budget needs to land on for technology. I have yet to hear anything about them. I know they're still discussing that and tweaking numbers, I'm sure. I'm hoping we'll hear something in the next month or two. 155 is proposed to operate at a level service budget with a 7.2% increase. I realize that's a significant increase, and we like to see half of that at best. And I'll get into exactly what that is, and I can show you the line item, in fact. But in general, we upgraded all of our infrastructure in the last 2 years. That meant we replaced all of our switching gear, our firewalls, our servers, operating systems. We updated the network operations centers, everything. As part of that upgrade, that was a capital funded project, and the project or the capital funding paid for the first year or two of service level agreements for all of that gear. This is the first year that we are now assuming on the operational budget, the service level agreement for that hardware. So firewalls, we assumed an $83,000 increase. We assumed a $17,000 increase on top of that for switching gear. Only through other line item reductions were we able to get that number down with a total increase of only $63,000 across that CIB budget. So that's where that budget currently sits in its present form. The 156 muni budget, or municipal software budget, primarily is what it's made up of, is proposed to operate at a level funded budget without any detriment to that budget. All services and everything will remain the same, and is literally an $8 increase to a $150,000 budget, roughly. So if you average those two out, you could say that, you know, we're looking at 3.5% per budget. The 315, excuse me, the 315 CPS budget is a whip, as I mentioned, work in progress with 3 scenarios presented. Superintendent, as I mentioned, gave us some running orders to go with. We submitted those budgets. We're waiting on them. At this point, we don't know what that adoption will look like. It could be a significant impact to the tech budget for the schools. We just don't know at this point. Let's see. Something that probably needs to be brought to attention also is that as part of that 155 reduction in line items, we did end up reducing a line item for device replacements to the tune of about $20,000. That line item is used for device replacements for staff computers, laptops, and that's town-wide. That number that we usually run with is about $48,000 for that purpose. And that's running a little bit less this year because of where we're trying to get this budget. That number represents a 6-year device replacement schedule, meaning that devices will be retired after 6 years. If we can't recover from that, or if we don't have other funding opportunities or options, that may go out to 7 years for some devices. So there's a detriment there that could potentially come up. The rest of the central infrastructure budget, if the name doesn't give it away, is essentially infrastructure. It pays for phone systems, wide area networks, server systems, everything that is common to every single department out there, all of the infrastructure, the firewalls, the switching gear, all of the ISP connectivity, all of that resides in that budget. Some budget concerns, future and past cybersecurity trends present issues. 3 years ago, we adopted a dedicated line item for security because we recognized that it was going to be a substantial part of our business expenses going forward, with cybersecurity constantly on the increase. And you'll hear a lot about that tonight. We dedicate funding for that, and that line item has seen some extraordinary increases to try to cover the threat landscape that we're seeing that's out there, by implementing solutions like incident response plans, cybersecurity security operations centers. There's been a number of things that have been substantial in cost, and that's driven that number up. We've recently deployed something called Duo, which is multi-factor authentication for all of the domains. Again, another big expense. Some of those cybersecurity mitigation tasks and solutions were driven by Maya. So Maya is our cybersecurity insurance company. So in the event that we don't meet minimum standards, there's a good chance that they would drop that insurance policy. So there's incentive there for us to spend the money and get that where it needs to be as well. Level of end user support is another concern. Primarily, years ago, we didn't see the cybersecurity issues that we see today. With those cybersecurities being what they are today, however, we've had to shift our priorities, and in some cases, the lower level help desk, end user help desk requests that come in have been put on a back burner in some cases until we could get back to them, because we're primarily seeing some type of event or some type of security vulnerability popping up almost every day. We are getting reports of administrative passwords that are being changed, that we have to look into and make sure that it was one of us and not somebody on the outside. We see email routing rules being configured for end user accounts, which will push an account or email system to another private account or a private email system like a Google or a Yahoo, and they'll create rules that will delete that email that comes into that user's inbox, so that end user doesn't even recognize that it's occurring. So with these sensors and agents that we have on the network and we have on our systems, we get to see that stuff real time. Those things require immediate reaction by at least 3 or 4 of us in the IT department. So the point is that end user support is unfortunately taking a hit because of that. We started 10 years ago with 4.5 FTEs, and we still have 4.5 FTEs. And in that time frame, we've put up wide area networks, data centers, deployed all kinds of different applications. So we built it. Everyone came, and we have to support it. And I feel badly that we're not giving the same level of support we did 3, 4, 5 years ago. But unfortunately, that's the world we're living in right now. So it is what it is. Excuse me. Inflation factors and solution SLA costs are well beyond the average department operational increases. I don't know if you've seen in the news lately, but tech costs are going through the ceiling. It almost seems like they're unjustifiably hitting their customers extra hard with support costs and such. I don't think it's justifiable, but they seem to be jumping on that bandwagon. And a lot of these companies are trying to get 10% increases for service level agreements that should have been 3 to 6%. I know one of the vendors that we had tried to come in at 10 or 12% increase, and only through our reseller, our vendor, did they push back and say, Cohasset isn't going to be able to do this. There's no way. And we were able to get that cost down. Excuse me. So we're looking at past perceptions of the information technology department and our service delivery, and it's been really favorable. We've had a really good reputation, I believe, and everything that I've heard from staff, students, parents. We've done well with end user support up until recently, and I think we're still doing a good job. We're meeting the needs. We're just not as quick to respond as I'd like us to be. So the other part of this being with operational budget allocation not being spent on technology, over time it will be detrimental to services. And what I'm referencing there is in the last 3 years, you know, we've had a tech budget in the schools 315 budget, and we haven't been able to leverage it completely. You know, there's been budget freezes for the last 3 years, and unfortunately this year it started in November. So, you know, we've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially not being able to update, you know, certain systems or solutions in the schools because of it. So it's tough, it's hard. Some takeaways, you know, ITS is providing every single department in the town with solution support. We are a very diverse group of individuals in IT. We have an IT matrix that highlights the skill sets of individuals. We assign those individuals as primary support personnel. There is depth in that bench where we'll have an additional tech or two backing up. There's an escalation plan in the event that it has to be escalated to a vendor or myself or whatever. So I think we've done well with our reputation, for lack of a better word. Solutions like GIS, electronic document management, and now, you know, AI, which is all over the place, will allow Cohasset to streamline business tasks while adding efficiencies. I'm especially spending a fair amount of time looking at numerous AI developments. It's really early on. It's really, I feel it's a buzzword. There's a lot of legitimacy to what it can do and what it is doing. But we've been using AI for a lot of years. If you look at our firewalls, we have something called intrusion prevention and intrusion detection. Those are essentially AI. They are, you see a network, a piece of data come through our firewall, or a website looking to gain access to a student or staff's network, and the firewall is smart enough to realize that, hey, that packet doesn't look right, or that's not normal the way it's coming in. It's coming in on the wrong port or something. It's smart enough to identify that, flag it, and either block it or allow it through. So there's a form of AI that we've been using for a long time on some of our appliances. Grants continue to impact Cohasset in a positive manner, with over $550,000 awarded to Cohasset in the last 3 years for security and efficiency goals, and we've done some really great things with those. Some of those I've already mentioned. One that I've just recently applied for with Chris was a grant for $200,000 with the state for efficiency. It's an effort for us to try to integrate GIS systems that we have with our document management system, and eliminate a more antiquated system that we have with another vendor. So if we get that funding, that's a cornerstone of what we plan to do with regards to process migrations, moving away from paper to e-forms. It's my favorite platform that Cohasset currently has. You have so many capabilities with it. It's really a cornerstone of what Cohasset should be leveraging going forward for the next 5-10 years. Other enhancements, some I mentioned, process efficiency migrations I just touched on, cybersecurity and system deployments. So we talked about, you know, the SOC, the Security Operations Center, that was new. An incident response plan, that was another grant from the state that allowed us to refresh our incident response plan and train with a number of individuals who would be tied to that plan. We actually have another grant that we're waiting to engage the water department vendor for a SCADA cybersecurity incident response plan. That's in the works as well. Communications and collaborations and execution timelines, including e-permitting, has all increased the response, the collaboration, and the communication we have with the constituents. So I feel we've done really well with those things. And that's about it.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone have questions?
Nope.
No, I think that was pretty thorough. The scam, phishing, all kinds of emails that are coming through right now are coming through at critical mass. It's unbelievable. No matter what you do, you can't seem to keep them out. So in a school
It's a
district
full-time
where
job.
everybody's got a phone on their hip, and then you've got staff in all of these buildings, you just don't know what you're dealing with. So
Yeah, I mean, we recognize just how critical and how hard it is, and we're constantly getting, feedback and information funneled to us through the state, through Homeland Security, through our SOC. So, Dan Kelly, our deputy CIO, who's with us, has been in school getting security certifications. He's been given the role of information security officer. So Dan is now our point person with all things to do with security. And I think that in light of what we see out there, I think it's appropriate. I'd like to see us gain another FTE in the schools to handle some of the lower level tasks that are in the classrooms and such, which would free up Dan or it would allow Dan to do more security-based actions and tasks, while allowing the other two systems administrators and technical support specialists, two positions, to again take some of what Dan is doing and handle those tasks as well. So I think we need a little bit more depth in bench, not only for getting back to our response times we had in the past, but potentially allowing Dan to actually do the security role in an efficient and effective manner.
anyone, questions? No. Chris?
Not a question. I just want to underscore how much Ron and his team have done, and Dan, and his team and their team. Ron was one of the first major hires I made when I started here, because we had really nothing. Ron was very blunt with me when we hired him. He's like, Chris, you don't have a computer network here. And
I was here then.
yeah, I know you were, and again, then the phone system failed, right? Or the one about, right? We didn't have a phone system. So we've come light years. And there's been a lot of investments made and a lot of questions asked. But as a result, we have a fiber loop, a town fiber network. We have all the work that's been done made it possible to do all the work we did during the pandemic to educate kids at home, and that allows us to support meetings like this. So we've really come a tremendous distance. And we have increased the central budget in the last couple of years. And it's really been driven by security and protection. And as a result, we've been, I don't want to brag about it because some
Don't say it.
No, but what happens is that there's a lot of hard work going on every day to maintain our networks and keep people safe. And the training we all go through too. I mean, we get pop-ups. I know there's fake phishing things that go on a regular basis to make sure we're staying safe. And I think Chief Quigley has something to add too.
I just want to add in as one of the end users, I was lucky enough to win the lottery that no chief wants to win back in the fall. We had we were chosen for a CJIS audit. The state comes in and audits how we do things as far as computer security and the criminal justice information system. And we brought Dan into that comment. Thank God we had Dan Kelly and Ron, but it's very technical, and the state sends down an inspector. She was just here 3 weeks ago, and she was very impressed, as was I. There's things going on in the background that I had no idea about, but she commented, she handles the whole eastern part of the state, and she said we're really on top of things. When I say we, I mean Cohasset IT, and we passed that audit. It was pretty arduous, but everything was in place, and we're doing everything right. So we rely heavily on IT, and they're doing a great job.
Thank you, Chief.
Good to know. Thank you. Okay, I think that we're good. Thank you very much. I appreciate you hanging out to this. This is very late for us to be here still at 8:30. So We
Thanks for
appreciate it.
having us. It was nice seeing everybody. Have a good night.
Same, you
Right.
too. Thank you very much.
Bye.
So the next agenda item is shared budgets. Chris, do you have anything else to add, or?
Well, I kind of covered it at the beginning, so,
That's what I thought. Okay, I just didn't know if there's anything else.
no, so, I will say, so we'll look a little ahead. So I'll have fire teed up for next week. I'll have DPW and facilities teed up for next week. Does that sound good?
Yep, that sounds great.
If you want me to have the community services piece, I mean, it's, you know, elder affairs, library and stuff. I mean, it's not a big chunk, but I'm happy to have anyone come in if you want.
We might as well do all of that front work now, and then when we go to the warrant and start going through, we'll have a knowledge of what we're talking about for warrant articles.
Right. They'll cover all the big number. I mean, police, fire, and public works facilities is really where we spend all of our money.
Right.
Not all of it, but a lot of it. So,
Yeah.
but I'll have the community service folks come in again if you want to hear from anybody else, like planning or IT or health. I mean, they're going to be in front of select board next week. The community services piece. So,
Okay, so anybody who's ready would be great.
and then I'll talk to you more offline, Gene, about warrant articles. I think you can probably start going through the routine ones.
Yep.
You know, and start banging some of those out.
Yeah, the first three
and stuff like
pages are pretty typical.
Yeah.
Is there really only one unpaid bill, or do you think you'll find more to
I'm
put up?
hoping there'll be none. Right now, there's one.
There is one. I did see that.
I've been working really hard to make sure to see if there's another way to see if anybody encumbered money somewhere to pay that thing.
Yeah.
So I obviously it's sitting in the draft warrant, so you see it's sitting there right now. So otherwise, you know, the CPC has a couple of big projects. So I don't know if you want. So Holly Hill Farm is asking for $1 million as part of their. And when I say Holly Hill, it's the Friends of Holly Hill Farm. They're going to buy the property and put it into a trust. So and they've made a pitch to the CPC. They actually have a big fundraising campaign that's going to be unveiled to the community. They're already, you know, in the quiet stage of it, I guess, relatively speaking, though it's not secret. And so the select board is going to get a special presentation on that next week, only because of its size and its magnitude. So if you want something, you can either watch the select board meeting next week, or if you want them to come in, just let me know and we can ask. It's oh my God, why am I blanking on his name?
John?
No, the chair of the committee is
Is it Rick Shea?
no, it's he used to host.
CPC, Tom Reardon.
No, the chair of the Holly Hill Fund.
Mark DiGiacomo.
Thank you.
In full disclosure, I'm on their fundraising committee, their capital campaign committee, so we'll get there, but I can answer questions too for people.
If you want, I mean, and then the select board officially presented a package on a town hall repair plan, which is about $5.4 million. That went to capital last night. So they're fully bidding that. So I can make sure I can get those materials to you folks tonight. I'm not going to get to depth on that for you tonight. It's on your agenda, but that was received well, and I think that's going to continue to move forward. So
Okay, so 5.4 million for a town hall repair.
I had a question about that. I did watch part of that presentation. Thank you, Mark, for your hard work.
The Mark Cameron plan. It's the Mark Cameron.
Oh, no.
He knows better than to get.
No.
It's all right.
My very quick question is what the funding source is likely to be. Is this something that capital budget would finance or?
Yeah, so there's two aspects to it. One, there's going to be some CPC funding sought because obviously a chunk of repairs on the historic side. That said, there's a fair amount of roll-off that's coming down, and that's the senior center and a few other projects that are all going to be paid off at the end of the FY26 year. So a borrowing of roughly $4 million would fit right into that slot. So I mean, it would mean that the money's tied up again, but it wouldn't cut into anything that's already available. Right. So that's how it would be funded. That's how it was presented to be funded. And you know, I think the CPC ask that hasn't been finalized yet, but the CPC eligible amount is substantial. It's probably $3 million or more. I don't know if that much will be asked for, but and there's some rollout, is the HVAC study that's underway right now, the design work is some old money, that left over from Toll Brothers. Diane, if you remember, there's some money that was still kicking around from that. And there's the roof, there was still $100 and some odd $1,000 left because the roof came in under budget, which was awesome. So that was being rolled back into the
When
cost.
did that ever happen?
Well, the one of the things that's actually favorable right now is that the market, the bidding market is moving in our direction. And I mean us, but all communities for the first time in a long time. And partly it's because a lot of jobs have dried up. I don't know if you're seeing it on the private side, Mark, but it's definitely starting to happen. In fact, I just heard from Michelle Leary that our project manager on the public safety building just did a big project to the south of us. And it came in $10 million. I mean, it was a much bigger project than ours, but the actual bid cost came in about $10 million less than they had projected. So,
Wow.
60 some odd million instead of 70 some odd million. So I'm not saying that we're not going to see those kinds of savings levels of money, but it's
Right.
a favorable time to bid. I mean, obviously, there are things beyond our control that could change that. But things seem to have come together pretty well. So
It definitely is an interesting time because you are seeing that slowdown in the market where it is advantageous for anybody building to be buying it out right now. I think the uncertainty here is what may happen with commodities coming into the raw materials and what will be affected. So
Yeah, where they're
That's-
coming from and how
that
much.
hasn't hit, that wave hasn't hit yet, but it's everything. It could be everything.
Yeah.
Get a lot from our northern neighbors and southern neighbors. So
Okay. All right, so I think that's it, unless you have anything else for us, Chris.
Nope.
Okay, I don't have anything that I didn't anticipate. Just as a recap, our March meetings will be the 5th, the 11th, the 19th, and the 26th. And I'll try and have them across the bottom going forward so that you can all plan. And then potentially April 2nd, if we need an extra meeting or maybe two, but hopefully not. So I would accept a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Second.
Mark and Diane, was that Diane?
Yep.
Okay, roll call, please. Mike Barkley,
Mike Barclay, aye.
Mark Cameron,
Mark Cameron, aye.
Fran Collins.
Aye.
Diane Kennedy,
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Mark Maggi.
Mark Maggi, aye.
Mary had to leave at about 10 past 8, so next would be Vince Thornton. Vince? Can't hear you.
you're muted.
I have to hear you.
Sorry, I'm on mute. Sorry, aye.
And Gina Stino, aye. Meg Wheeler?
Meg Wheeler, aye.
Okay. Thank you very much, and I'll see you folks next week.
Congratulations on
Thank you.
your extended chairmanship, Jane.
Oh, thank you.
Quite good at it.
Long live the Queen.
Yeah.
Jeez. Thanks a lot. Have a good rest of your night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.